Assalamu alaikum students, I hope you all are well, safe and healthy at home. Welcome to all of you in this class of English language teaching, and I am your course instructor Farzana Khan. Well, today I'm here with another important topic, teaching a reading skill. Well, dear students, as the nature of your course is to enable you to tackle all the teaching responsibilities in the future. So the purpose of this course is to make you an effective English language teacher. So keeping in mind this criteria, keeping in mind this purpose, so this course has been designed in a way to enable you to understand that how to teach reading, writing, speaking and listening skill of English language to the students. For this purpose, prior to that, you were taught about how to teach speaking and listening skill to your students in the classroom. You were also taught how to plan lesson for listening and for speaking skill of the students. Well, today you are going to learn that how to teach a reading skill to your students. Being a teacher, which strategies you need to employ while developing and polishing and improving the reading skill of the students. Along with this, in this lecture, you will also understand that how to plan lesson for teaching a reading skill. Well, pay close attention to the lecture to understand all the important aspects of teaching a reading skill and planning lesson for teaching a reading skill. Let's start first of all from the definition of reading. That what is reading? Actually, reading is the process of receiving and interpreting information encoded in language from via the medium of print. Our comprehension occurs when the reader extracts and integrates various information from the text and combines it with what is already known. This is the definition of reading. In a simple language, we can say the process of understanding what is written and getting the meaning, comprehending that what has been conveyed in the written way. It's called reading. So question arises that why do we teach reading to our students? Basically, when you are going to teach English language to your students, at that time you need to focus on 4 skills: reading, writing, speaking and listening. So reading is very important. We basically teach students a reading skill to help them to learn the language. Along with this, we do teach them reading for the purpose of enabling them to get information through reading. And also, they do improve reading skill for the purpose of reading for cultural knowledge and for getting awareness. Actually, the reading to learn the language is giving students a variety of materials to read, which helps them absorb vocabulary, grammar, sentence structure, and the discourse structure. So students thus gain a more complete picture of the ways in which the elements of the language work together to convey the meanings. When our purpose is to develop and improve the language skill of the students, and for that purpose we are teaching reading to the students, at that time the teacher will provide materials to the students, and the purpose of that material will be to improve the vocabulary, grammar, sentence structure and discourse structure of the students. And in this way, students will get more complete understanding about the elements of the language, which are very important for developing the language skill along with the reading of the particular language. So the next step after understanding the language, as a teacher do assign tasks to the students for getting content information. So when it comes to reading for content information, the student's purpose for reading is often to obtain information about a subject they are studying. So reading for content information is the language classroom gives students both authentic reading material and an authentic purpose for reading. If your purpose is enabling students to get information from the content, you will provide authentic reading text to the students, and you will teach certain strategies to the students that how to get information from the written text. But this will come after understanding the language. If a student cannot read the written text, then he cannot get the particular information from the text. So first step is actually to develop the reading skill of language. So when it comes to reading for cultural knowledge and awareness, at that time reading everyday materials that are designed for native speakers can give students insight into the lifestyles and world views of the people whose language they are studying. So language reading is also taught for cultural knowledge and for awareness. But first and foremost important is that to reading to understanding the language. So you might be thinking that which are the strategies which you can employ while teaching a reading skill to your students. Let me tell you the strategies which are very important. So what are the reading strategies that a teacher can use while teaching reading? So being a teacher, you can use various strategies. The most important are these. So strategies that can help students read more quickly and effectively include previewing, predicting, skimming, and scanning. The fourth is guessing from the context, and fifth is paraphrasing. You can employ these strategies while teaching reading to your students, depending on the topic and context. So let me elaborate all these strategies one by one. Keep it in your mind that when you are teaching a reading skill to your students and when you are employing certain strategies at that time, you need to play the role of a teacher. As a group, try to show the role of the teacher in every strategy, because in this way the strategy will be successful and the student will be able to improve their reading skill. Previewing. The strategy reviewing titles. When you are assigning any reading task to your students, then first of all you can suggest them to preview. Means you can ask them to review the titles, section headings which are given in the topic or chapter, and photo caption to get a sense of the structure and content of a reading selection. For instance, if you are giving any chapter to your students for the purpose of reading, so previewing strategy would be that when you ask your students to check the titles, the subheadings, the photos, images, graphs which are given in the chapter, and captions, just to get the idea about what that passage is. It will enable the student to read with interest. It will increase interest, and it will also will be very helpful for students for reading. So previewing is the first strategy which you can employ when you are going to assign a reading task to your students. Along with previewing, the other strategy is predicting. You can ask your students to use your background knowledge and tell what you are expecting, what will happen later on in the text, and about what that particular text is. So using knowledge of the subject matter to make predictions about the content and vocabulary and check comprehension. So you can ask your students to use their prior knowledge about the topic and predict about the vocabulary and about the content what they are going to read. Another strategy is skimming and scanning. These two are the reading strategies which are usually taught to the students to understand the written text. So you can ask students to skim and scan the passage. So using a quick survey of the text to get the main idea. Skimming is used to get the main idea, just having a look at the passage, just reading the first sentence and the last sentences of the passage. And you can ask them to identify text structure and confirm our question about the predictions. So skimming and scanning are the two strategies which you can employ for reading purpose. The next strategy is guessing from the context. Using prior knowledge of the subject and the ideas in the text as clues to the meanings of unknown words, instead of stopping to look up and to look them up. Basically, you can teach your students that when they are reading any type of text, so if they are facing any difficulty in understanding any type of word, they need to understand from the text that what would be the meaning of that particular word instead of stopping and then looking up for the dictionary to check the meaning. They need to underline those words and later on they can check the meaning. But for the fluency, it's important guessing from the context. This is also a strategy for developing and improving the reading skill, guessing the structure of the sentence, guessing the meaning of the sentences, along with this, guessing the meaning of the words, vocabulary guessing, depending on the context. So this strategy can be employed for developing a reading skill of the student. So other strategy is paraphrasing. You can ask your student to stop at the end of a section or at the end of a paragraph and check comprehension by restating the information and ideas in the text. You can ask your students that after reading few lines or after reading one paragraph, stop at that place and just rephrase, just restate in your own language that what you have read. So this strategy you can employ to check the comprehension of the students, that how much they are getting the information, are getting the ideas from the written text. So these are the strategies which you can employ when you are teaching reading skill to your students in the classroom. So incorporating effective reading strategies into the second language classrooms. How can you incorporate effective reading strategies which I have explained right now in your classroom? So let me tell you, basically when we talk about the application of these strategies, so how can you employ, how can you use these strategies? There are basically 3 steps: pre-reading activities, while reading, and post-reading. To encourage the students to use effective strategies when reading, the teacher can develop simple exercises to elicit information via targeted strategies. So these exercises can be divided by the stage of reading at which they occur into. Keep it in your mind what all the strategies which I have explained. You can employ any 1, 2, 3, whatever, how much strategies you require, keeping in mind the topic, the level of the students. But how will you employ those strategies? You will have to develop simple exercises keeping in mind those strategies. But along with this, you will keep it in your mind that you will design your strategies in 3 categories: the pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. All the strategies which I have explained to you. So all those strategies, you can select some as a pre-reading, some are for while reading, and some are for post-reading. So now let me explain you how and which activities you can design keeping in mind the strategies for pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading activities. When it comes to pre-reading activities or before reading activities, you can ask your student to share existing knowledge about the particular topic. You can ask them to predict from words or titles. As predicting strategy I have explained to you. So you can ask your students to predict from the headings, from the pictures, and from the titles, and from the words. Predicting from a key illustration which are usually given there. Sequencing illustration, you can read it questions, you can ask questions, and it can be a type of the storytelling. For instance, you are assigning any topic to the students. Before that, you can explain the story of what you have assigned to your students for the purpose of reading. So these type of activities, any 1 or 2, you can employ as a pre-reading activity for teaching reading in your classroom. So pre-reading activities introduce students to a particular text. You can simply introduce your students about the text, about the topic, chapter which you have assigned to your students for reading. Elicit or explain or provide appropriate background knowledge. Sometimes it can happen the students don't have the background knowledge. So that's why it's very important that you must very clear about the level of the students. So if you are sure the students don't have the background knowledge, then you need to provide the background knowledge to the students. If you are sure the students have the knowledge, then you can ask your student to use your prior knowledge and you can simply ask questions. Finally, you can arouse their interest in the reading. This is very important. So in pre-reading activities, you need to arouse the interest of the student. So pre-reading activities include brainstorming, considering illustrations and titles, skimming and scanning for structure and for getting the main point, main idea of the topic. So these are the pre-reading activities which you can employ when you are teaching reading skills to your students. So after pre-reading, while reading, or during reading activities. During reading, word masking, shared book, reading for detail, you can ask them to skim and scan the text. Modeled reading, you can provide them a modeled reading, pause and prediction. Shadow reading, summarizing the text. Jigsaw reading and reading aloud. These all are the name of the activities. So let me tell you about the while reading exercises or activities. So while reading exercises or activities help students to develop reading strategies, improve their control of the second language, and decode problematic text passages. Means if there are difficult or complex passages, so while reading strategy can help students to understand the complex passages. So such exercises or activities can include guessing word meanings from context clues. You can ask students to guess the meaning of the words if they are facing any difficulty or if they are reading a new word. So considering syntax and sentence structure. Syntax is structure of the sentence, grammatical components of the sentence. So you can ask your students to understand the sentence structure of the students just to get the meaning and understand that for what sense and for what purpose that particular sentence or passage and paragraph has been written. You can ask your students to analyze reference words. Reading for specific piece of information. You can ask students to skim the passage for the purpose of getting information. And you can ask students to scan the passage for the purpose of getting information, required information. And learning to use the dictionary effectively. It doesn't mean when you are teaching your students to guess the meaning of the words that you are totally ignoring the use of the dictionary. You need to encourage the students to use dictionary effectively when they are reading, which may not affect their fluency but also increase their comprehension about the text. So these are the while reading strategies which you can employ while teaching reading skill to your students. And after that, there are post-reading exercises or post-reading strategies. It includes, you need to check students' comprehension because you have employed brainstorming or whatever the pre-reading strategies, and during reading, you help your students, you assign them different activities and different exercises to develop their reading skill. But at the end, post-reading exercises or strategies or activities are those activities which you employ for the purpose of assessing that how much students have understood the written text. It's very important because otherwise students will not focus on what they have read. They will just pretend in front of the teacher that they are reading. So when it will be clear in their mind that at the end the teacher can ask question. So their focus will be on comprehending, understanding the passage. So you need to check the comprehension, lead them to a deeper analysis of the text. So because the goals of most real world reading are not to memorize an author's point of view or to summarize text content. Second, language reading must go beyond detail, eliciting comprehension drills. So you need to design such type of reading, post-reading activities which evaluate the comprehension skills of the reading, because when it comes to reading language, reading for the purpose of language, you are teaching reading skill for the development of the language. At that time, comprehension is very important. So focus should be on comprehension. You can simply ask questions about the text just to check the understanding of comprehension of the students. So these all are the activities: pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading exercises are activities which you can design and which you can employ for teaching reading skill to your students when you are teaching second language English language to your students. I hope all these points are pretty clear in your mind. Well, dear students, you were already taught about the lesson planning, that how to plan lesson for speaking and listening skill. So in this class, I'll also tell you that how to plan lesson for reading skill. Lesson planning is very important. Without planning, if you're going to teach to your students, then you won't be able to get proper result which you want. So it's very important whenever you are going to teach any topic, you need to plan. So whenever you are going to teach any topic, and the purpose of that topic is to improve the reading skill of your students, you need to plan a lesson. So lesson of reading skill would be different from the lesson of the speaking or listening skill, because here you will add the strategies, activities, keeping in mind the nature of the topic. Further elements of the and further components of the lesson plan would be the same. You were already taught about the lesson plan, in which I have clearly explained that which are the important component of lesson planning. You must be pretty clear about the topic, about the duration, about the material which you are going to employ, about the level of the students, number of the students, and time duration, in which you will mention the topic, the objective, and the learning outcomes. Along with this, you will mention the resources, the aids which you can employ during teaching in the classroom. Along with this, you need to mention the activities pre, while, and post reading activities which you will employ in the classroom. Along with this, you need to mention the time duration, that which time you will give to pre-reading activity, how much time you will give to while reading, and how much time you will give to post-reading activity. So it's very important for the development and improvement of the teacher. Along with this, for the effective conduction of the class and for the development of the students. So let me tell you about the lesson planning. Here I'll tell you important points because the components have already been explained in the previous classes. Well, for instance, you are going to plan a lesson for the class 9. You need to mention the class, whether it's 5th, 6th, 7th, metric, whatever the class is. So skill practice. Which skill you want to develop? A reading skill, right? So time duration 45 minutes. It can be 50, it can be 1 hour and 20 minutes depending on the institution where you are teaching. And resources, teaching aids, helping material, right? So word cards, substitution tables, textbooks, written dialogues, board marker. If you are going to use LED or worksheets, whatever, you need to mention. You also need to mention the topic which you are going to teach. After mentioning the topic, it's very important to mention the objectives. Objectives are very important. Objectives are aims. What is your purpose for teaching this, and what you expect from the students by the end of this class? So objectives can be: read thoroughly and effectively, find answers in the text after reading and reading, find meaning of the given text. Whatever the objective can be, developing the comprehension, understanding the passage clearly and fully, whatever the objectives, you need to mention the objective in the lesson plan. So next comes the methodology, that which methodology will you employ while teaching that particular topic. So for instance, gap filling, reading silently, reading aloud, matching words, which methodology you want to adopt. it's up to you. Lecture, writing on the whiteboard, explaining through the PowerPoint slides, whatever the methodology you are going to employ. You will mention here, along with this, the activities, substitution table, play cards, reading game. It can be any activity. Brainstorming, you can mention the guessing, and keep it in your mind whenever you are planning a lesson and you are mentioning activities. Here you will also mention the pre-reading activities, while reading which activity you will employ, and post-reading. Along with this, you will also mention the time duration, that how much time you will give to pre-reading, how much time will be given to while reading, and how much time will be given to post-reading activities. Here you can see the time has been given here. Activity number 1, making sentences by filling gaps in the substitution table. Activity number 2, reading passages from textbooks silently and telling in their own words what the passage is all about. So this activity can be employed just to evaluate the reading comprehension of the student. For instance, you can employ such type of activities, and you can mention the time duration. Activity 1, substitution table, increased difficulty level as that of presentation stage. Activity number 2, sentence making with the help of cards, and gap filling and passage written on board. Whatever the activities you are going to employ, briefly and concisely you need to mention the activity, name of the activity, and little bit description of the activity, along with this the time duration. After that, finally you will mention the assessment, that how will you evaluate your students. Students will be assessed informally on their ability to read correctly. So words cards and games can be given 2 marks for each card they have in the end. So any activity you can simply ask question, whatever the activity or strategy you are going to employ by the end of the lecture to evaluate the assessment, to evaluate how much students have developed and learned, improved in today's class. You need to mention here your plan. So it's all about reading, teaching reading skill, and planning lesson. I have precisely and concisely here explained the lesson plan. All important components of lesson plan and the format of the lesson plan has already been shared with all of you. And I hope all the points are pretty clear in your mind. In today's class, dear students, you have learned, you got the idea, you understood how to teach reading skill to the students in the classroom, which strategies you can employ, what are the pre-reading strategies, what are the while reading, and what are the post-reading strategies you can employ while teaching reading skill, and how can you develop your lesson plan for teaching reading skill. So it's all about today's class. In the next class, I'll come up with the how to teach a writing skill to the students and how to plan lesson for a writing topic, any topic, for the purpose of teaching creative writing or writing skill to the students. Well, here I'll wind up the session. I hope all the points are clear in your mind. In case of any confusion, you can contact me. You can discuss with me in the WhatsApp group, and you can discuss in the discussion room. Well, dear students, take care. Allah Hafiz.